Hey everyone, my name is David Rao, and I'm the music teacher who blogs at makemomentsmatter.org. You can also find my ideas on Facebook, Pinterest, Instagram, TikTok, um, Teachable, variety of places when you search for my name, David Rao, or Make Moments Matter. Today is the last Musical Mondays of the semester, which means that now I've done 15 Musical Mondays just this semester, along with the 7 years before, 8 years, I don't know, many years. So there are even more resources for you if you want to go back and watch old ones or listen to old podcasts, you can. But I've done 15 this semester, and so I'm going to take a little break and come back in January. Speaking about January, so I'm taking a little break also because in January I'm coming back with more Musical Mondays, but I'm also doing a lot more in-person workshops. So if you are around any of the places I'm about to mention, think about coming in and joining us for an in-person workshop. So I'm going to be with the Wyoming Music Educators in Cody, Wyoming on January 19th and 20th. And doing several sessions for them. I think 5 different sessions at the Wyoming Music Educators Conference. I'll be at the Greater Rochester Orff chapter, so near Rochester, New York, on January 24th. So if you're near Rochester, come and join us for that. A one morning session, so like a day session. It's on a Saturday. I'll be with the Illinois Music Educators on January 30th, 31st. Thanks to West Music for that. And I'll be there doing, I think, 3 sessions. I can't remember exactly. It's still a long ways off, so I'm still figuring that out. And then I'm going to be with the Texas Music Educators in San Antonio, Texas, doing 6 sessions. That is in February. So if you're in any of those places, Wyoming, Rochester, New York, Peoria, Illinois, or all of Illinois, because it's Illinois Music Educators, or Texas Music Educators, if you're in any of those places, come and join us. I would hope you would get some great things out of the conferences and be fun to meet more people. So anyway, so all that to say, I'm taking a little break now because I've hit 15 for the semester, and I'll come back in January with more Musical Mondays videos. But this is the last one for the semester because I got to take some time to prep for the next stuff. A couple other things. If you hear any books, resources, movies, videos, whatever in these movies you're interested in, you can go to my blog, makemomentsmatter.org, click the video tab. You can find all the Musical Mondays that I've ever done for the past 7 or 8 years, plus this year, and just click on the this year dates, the 25, 26, and you'll find all the things that I talk about in these videos. Okay, cool. So last week I said, hey, if you have any questions, just put them in this little form. And one person responded. So I'm going to answer their question, and then I'm going to talk about Nutcracker-inspired Orff instrument exploration, because if y'all don't give me questions, I'm just going to make things up. And so one thing I love around this time of year is the Nutcracker. And so I'm going to share a lesson I have never shared. But it's actually great because the question that the person asked was, what classroom procedures do you put in place before introducing barred instruments? I have some very challenging kindergartners. Well, I will say I do not typically start barred instruments with kindergartners, at least not in a way that I want them to play a melody or an accompaniment or something else. It almost always starts with exploration. In kindergarten, that's our biggest focus. It's exploration with the pitch percussion instruments, just to get them used to the instruments, comfortable, to teach some of those procedures, to teach some of those basics of the Orff instruments or pitch percussion instruments, whatever term you use for them. So there's a lot of exploration, there's a lot of playing around before we ever do anything that's specific, like I need you to play a melody, or I want you to play a rhythm, or I want you to improvise, or I want you to play an accompaniment. I don't get to that until we've done a lot of exploration. And that exploration, honestly, I don't put them on an expensive instrument until I know that they can handle themselves and their bodies a little bit more than maybe they did when they came in August. So typically I start with very simple things. Usually with my smaller instruments, and if I had an example of that, I would put that, or I'd pull that out to show you. But usually with glockenspiels, things like that, usually early on. But it's exploration. It's like Itsy Bitsy Spider, but going up and down a glockenspiel, or something that's very simple. Reading a book that has inspired movements that can go up and down the instrument and explore the instrument. Kind of what I'm going to show in just a minute. That's the Nutcracker related stuff. But it's all things that Once they know me a little bit, once they know the expectations of the room a little bit, once they know expectations of other things a little bit, then we'll go to the instruments. But not before, because the kids, they need a routine, they need a set expectation, they need to know you and what you expect before you put them into an environment where they will be very stimulated and very excited. It's why the tech teacher in my school doesn't do iPads the very first week or the very first few weeks. It's why they don't pull out paint right away. It's why the art teacher doesn't pull out paint right away. It's why, I mean, like, that it's why you have to gradually get them into that. And that's why one of the first things I do with Orff instruments when kids get to those pitched percussion instruments is instrument exploration. And that's the lesson I'm going to talk about tonight with Nutcracker-related instrument exploration. I have never done this. But I had this like wild in the airport moment the other day as I was coming home from the American Orff Shoulderwork Association National Conference, which was amazing. I hope that you get to go to that next year if you didn't get to go this year. And if you did go this year, I hope that you're still basking in all the cool ideas. But I was sitting in the airport thinking, like, I can't wait to get back to school because it is Nutcracker season. That's not true. I thought, I'm so glad I get Thanksgiving week off. But when I do get back, I'm excited because it's Nutcracker season. And so I wanted to share this Nutcracker ideas that I had and tell you I have not yet used them with kids. I've used similar things, but I want to share sort of the idea of what I'm going to do, and then I will report back in January about how it went. But I don't have any Nutcrackers at home except for one. And that is the one that my sister gave me several years ago that she painted to look like me. Because why wouldn't you need a Nutcracker that looks like you? And I'm not wearing the exact outfit that she used when she made it, but like kind of close. Like I didn't even think about wearing a gray cardigan, but like I surprisingly I am, and so is the Nutcracker. Anyway, you can tell this was from a couple years ago because there are not so many wrinkles that she drew on. But anyway, so this is Nutcracker David, and when I'm at school, though, I'm going to pull out one of my like actual like my school Nutcrackers that maybe look, the more traditional like soldier or king or prince or something like that. Even though Nutcracker David also has a crown. I mean, in case you're not seeing this, if you're like washing the dishes while you're watching or listening to this, Nutcracker David does have a crown. But typically I don't. Anyway, but Nutcrackers typically do. This one is fun because it's holding a Nutcracker. My sister thought it was perfect because then it could be me holding a Nutcracker because, of course, you do that. Anyway, so what I'm going to do with kids is we're going to talk about the Nutcracker story before we ever get to the instruments. So, in fact, there's probably going to be a lesson where we talk about what are some things about Nutcrackers. What do you notice? What do you see? Well, the Nutcracker is sitting up or standing up very, very stiff. Right? And the little Nutcracker in its hand, you might notice, and I have Nutcrackers at school that I'll demo this too, but the Nutcracker that it's holding has its arms sort of at a right angle, so its elbow is bent. But sometimes the Nutcrackers are just standing with their arms straight down. The Nutcrackers look very uncomfortable, actually, because they're so like stiff and proper, right? And so if you were going to be a Nutcracker, if you were going to move, what would that look like? And so usually my my Nutcracker lessons that are movement based start with exploration of like, what does this character look like? Can you stand to look like a Nutcracker? If you were a Nutcracker and you moved, what would that look like? And so we're getting these ideas in our head before we go to the pitch percussion instruments because I want kids to have some preloaded ideas before I ask them to play. Again, it's before kids get to an instrument, you want to have ideas and things preloaded into their head because the second they get those mallets, heaven help us, right? Like they need to have some ideas already because they're not gonna listen if they have the mallets in their hand. It's like if you want to talk to me about something serious and you give me a cookie, I will be distracted by the cookie. And then when I am done with the cookie or once I've started eating it, I might listen, but like you need to withhold the cookie if you want my full attention. I don't know. Anyway, but it's the same with kids. They like once they have the mouse in their hand, their brain just like goes. So we have to preload. So like, what are things that Nutcrackers look? How do they look? How might they move? What are things about them that you should know? Okay, so with kids, I would probably talk about how stiff they look, how proper they look, how if they were going to move, what would that look like? And we might explore like moving, very stiff, very decisive, things like that. Then we would talk through some of the elements of the story. So the Nutcracker has to fight the mice, the rat king, right? The mouse king. And how would mice move? Well, mice generally do not want to be heard. They do not want to be found out. And so they'd probably move pretty quiet and pretty slow and soft. I mean, most mice, these mice have like formed an army and stuff, but like mice in general, how do they move? And so we might scurry around and play around, might do little squeaks, but not loud, because you don't want the cat to come looking for you. You don't want, someone to come try and find you or whatever. Most of the time, mice want to be incognito, and so be like quick and light movements, right? So we might even just switch back and forth between like, okay, now you're a nutcracker, now you're a mouse. How would you move? Fast, quick, slow. Now you're nutcracker. Now you'd move slow and decisive. Okay, now you're a mouse. You're quick and light and fast and quiet. Okay, back to being a nutcracker. So like might play around going back and forth. Then we might explore like the sugar plum fairy. How does she move? She moves slow and sweet. And yes, okay, maybe we'd watch a clip or something. But if I'm thinking like just fairy, just like general fairy, I think like slow and light and like careful, but like dainty and fun, and like maybe like zip around and move around and do like woo, but like not crazy loud, not heavy, not I don't know, not like a monster or like a giant or something. Like if you're thinking of fairy, you think like light and quick and sprite like, right? And then the last character I'd probably introduce with if I'm doing this to younger kids, I would want the Nutcracker, I would want the mice, like the Rat King, I would want the Sugar Plum Fairy, and then I think I would want Drosselmeyer, because I want some magical sound. So we talk about Drosselmeyer and how would he move, maybe mysterious. Maybe he sort of like moves quickly, or maybe he moves slow. I don't know. It depends on his mood. And then he loves to sweep his cape around. He's just so, like he's like ostentatious, excited, and like, like he's showy. He was like, wah, so like he might sweep his cape around. Yeah, all the things, right, that are sort of magical and fun. Okay, so when we have all that preloaded in our head, so like those 4 characters, the Nutcracker, like stiff, decisive, sort of proper, right? The mice, quick, light, fast, but quiet. The Sugar Plum Fairy, maybe not super quiet, but definitely light and gentle, and might go fast, right? Like she might zip through the air. And then Drosselmeyer, magical, mysterious. So that gives us like 4 general character ideas. Even if the kids haven't heard the story or seen any video or know anything about the ballet, those are 4 different characters that they can remember, right? And I'm going to have pictures or visuals. Like I'm going to have a Nutcracker, right? And I actually have Nutcrackers of all the main characters in the Nutcracker. So like I have a Drosselmeyer Nutcracker, I have a Clara Nutcracker, I have a Rat King Nutcracker, and I have a Nutcracker. So I could like have those out as visuals, but you could like have pictures on PowerPoint or something like that if you wanted. Okay, so then we would go to the instruments, and usually with my students, when we're doing just basic instrument exploration, I won't have them necessarily take off bars, or for kinder, I would just leave the bars on. You can do this with bars off, but I would probably leave the bars on just for the sake of exploration. In fact, even before we give the instruments, maybe I give them mallets and let them continue moving and playing. So a Nutcracker, the way they move might be something like stiff and move like, and a mouse might be, you could even do the mouse like whiskers, right? And you could go, you could even do whiskers with your fingers like this. So you have to pinch the mallets, and your fingers can be the whiskers. This is great to help them start to learn how to hold the mouse, because you want them to pinch between their thumb and first finger, but their other fingers can come out and be little whiskers for the mouse. That'd be fun. Okay, so you've got your stiff Nutcracker, you've got your whiskers, you got your little mouse who's darting around, you have the fairy who might be like flowing and and then you would have Drosselmeyer, mysterious, right? And like, wow, I've arrived. Oh, I'm mysterious. Like you might do some different things with that. But I would probably, between talking about the characters and playing the instruments, I would hand out mallets so they could do more movement exploration, but just with mallets in their hand. Okay, so how would the Nutcracker move? The Nutcracker, remember, he'd be kind of stiff and like decisive. He's not like a giant. He's not like stomping around, but he might be kind of like marching. So if I were going to move up the instrument, I might march kind of like that. I might have like sort of stiff movements. I am in no illusion that kids are going to go up a scale like that. They'll probably just like be all over, depending on what grade I do this with. But some, something kind of stiff movements. We might even say like find one bar you really like. Find your biggest bar and let's just do a steady beat, because I feel like a Nutcracker would be very good at a steady beat. Okay, find that. Great. You could even, if you want, with the older kids, you want them to practice playing a drone, like a Bordoon, you could have them find C and G and just do a steady beat with that. That would be something you could do if you wanted to like practice, that sort of stiff, steady, decisive sort of thing. Again, I would say it's not like really hard. Like they're not angry. Nutcrackers are just like stern or serious, but they're not angry. They're not like giants. They're not like stomping. They're not destroying anything. In fact, they're protectors, right? So like I would say those like Nutcracker soldiers would be like sort of stiff, but like not crazy. And honestly, like your arms, you're not going to be just like a Nutcracker because you can't play. So you could even talk about like what's the difference between a Nutcracker who just stands ready. Like the Nutcracker position could be ready, like with your hands out and your mouth straight up and stiff and waiting. And then when it's time to play, you could find like a Nutcracker playing position. It'd work really well if you had like a Nutcracker that, well, this one has a horn in his hand, but if you had like a drummer Nutcracker, that maybe would help too. I don't know. Okay, so then the mice. Mice are quick, they're light, they're fast. And the kids could play around where would the mice go. You could even have, if you wanted, you could pull out your slapstick and be like, when you hear the sound of the mouse trap, you have to stop. It doesn't mean it got you, but it might have scared you, the mouse, right? So like, like that slapstick sound, they could all like smack, they could stop like and hide. Maybe that's another thing of like, you could add in the prompt of like hide could be like mallets go down or mallets get put away, or so they're not visible. Okay, then you're gonna have the Sugar Plum Fairy who's light and gentle, and you know what? She always lands exactly where she wants to. Her feet, she goes exactly where she wants, and for me, that's right in the middle of the bar. See, because right in the middle of the bar, there's a letter, and in the middle of the bar, there's a little image of the mallet, of like the mallet, because this is the Sonar brand, so it's gonna look like this. So that's right where she lands. Can you practice landing right on that letter, right on that little image of the mallet footprint? No matter where you play, it's got to be kind of gentle because the Sugar Plum Fairy is not going to be, again, she's not going to stomp. She's not angry, but find a little spot and just drop into place there. And if you wanted to pull bars off and have this be pentatonic or something, you could if you wanted, but I'm not going to go there. And then there's Drosselmeyer, right? And Drosselmeyer, ooh, he's like magical. He's like showy. So that would be like, like, or you could even have like, his cape, he like throws back his cape. So you could start in the middle and go out. And he might be like, look and listen to me. And he might go like waggle his fingers at you like, look, 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 I have something to tell you. And if you waggle your fingers, you go. Like this is where you could have all those fun like sound effect-y sort of things, so that when Drosselmeyer's character comes in, he can do some of those silly, those silly sound effect-y sort of things. So you have 4 characters here. You can have, you could act like the characters, you could call it the characters, you could have a slideshow on the screen where it cycles through different pictures, and you could have the kids react in the moment. It kind of depends on what you want to do. You could hold up the Nutcracker that's the right one, or you could have kids come out and act out those 4 different characters. They could act and move like a Nutcracker just like they did before. They could act and move like a mouse, or like Drosselmeyer, like the Sugar Plum Fairy. You could expand this to include other characters from the show or other things that are related. I mean, it's absolutely up to you, but because I have all the Nutcrackers and because I incorporate the story a lot, it'd be fun to do the movement stuff and then to bring in the instruments. So again, things that I've taught along the way, like getting a good Nutcracker sound, very decisive. Nutcrackers would never do this sort of like smushy sound. They always have this nice sort of bell-like tone, okay? And then, so then there's the mice. Quick, fast, light, not loud. Fast, light. And when they hear that, they have to stop. Okay, let's the Sugar Plum Fairy. She always lands right where she wants. So like right on the little label in the middle of the bar, or on the little picture of the mallets. Perfect. And then Drosselmeyer, who's like fancy and magical. You could have different motions that you call out for that if you want. But All of those things are like simple, easy. Oh, I forgot the mice. When you do the mice, you could have pinch the mouths and then let your other fingers be the whiskers. That'd be fun too. But there are so many things you can do with this if you want. And because I'm going to be using Nutcrackers anyway, because we're already in, I know a couple grades that I have where we do movement related to Nutcracker characters, this would be like an amazing next step. Even if you don't have, or especially if you don't have like a full class set of instruments, why not have like half the kids on one side of the room with an instrument and the other kids acting out the movements? You could have, you could call out something and like half the kids could move like Nutcracker and the other half could play. And then you could have them move like Drosselmeyer. The other kids could play like that. It would be hilarious and fun for all the people involved. And it gives you a chance to tie in the Nutcracker content and retell the story if you want. There are a lot of fun things you can do with it if you want. If you try this out with students and you have thoughts, ideas, or other characters, or comment on how it went, please come back to this video, this thread, and leave those comments so that other people who see it can go like, oh my gosh, David, I can't believe you forgot to include blah, 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 whatever character. Because like maybe you're like you know, a big Mother Ginger and her Polichinelle's like fan, and you always get mad whenever one of the ballets like leaves that out, or I don't know, you know, maybe you like have a very, very strong opinion about something Nutcracker related and you want that included. Please leave those comments and other people can see it and try it too. But if you do this Nutcracker inspired lesson, let me know how it went. I would love to know. I'd love to hear more about it. Like I said, I'm not going to be back next week because I'm taking a couple weeks off because this is my 15th Musical Mondays of the semester. So I'll see y'all again in January. And if you are near Wyoming, Illinois, or Texas, or sorry, if you live in Wyoming, Illinois, or Texas, I hope I'll get to see you at your state conference in January or February. Or if you live near Rochester, New York, I hope you'll come and join us for the Greater Rochester Orff Chapter workshop in late January. Put those on your calendar, start planning now. And if I don't see you before then, I will see y'all at the Musical Mondays when we start back in January. So have a great Thanksgiving, everyone, and I'll see y'all soon. Bye, everyone.